Hello, hello, and welcome back. We are in the third installation of the Career Pivot Conversation series. I've been your host this entire time. My name is Ibiami Logan. If you don't know me, get to know me. I'm kidding. My job is career coaching, so I help people make transitions in their career, specifically mid-career professionals. And I have been doing this series every single week in September, and it has been amazing. So the first week we spoke to somebody that was sort of climbing the corporate ladder, 16 years into her banking career, decided to become a coach to help other women advance in their career. Last week we spoke with an engineer who pivoted into project management and then moved from Canada to the US, and just how he did that and what he had to adapt to. And this week we have none other than Miss Danica Nelson. I am so excited for this conversation. Danica and I met as you meet people online about 2 years ago, because we were both sort of navigating a really tough transition. And a lot of her videos started showing up for me. And then I reached out to her a couple times and I was like, hey, you're sort of in the same boat as I am. Can we be friends? and Yeah, that's how it started. And 2 years later, we both pivoted into entrepreneurship full time, and we're really passionate about women and just having them take breaks and navigate burnout and all of that. But without further ado, I will bring up Danica to the stage. Hello, hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I feel like we've had a lot of conversations, but I love that we're able to bring other people into it. So, very, very excited about that. So, we'll jump right in. Again, feel free to answer and share from your story. I know that you love this work, like you've dedicated your life to this work. So, it's really, really important to you, same way it's important to me. But let's start with your story. So, you have spoken a lot about burnout and you've been open about it. Can you walk us through what was going on before you essentially identified that you were burnt out? Like, what was the catalyst? What did you know that you had to change essentially?
For sure. So, I have experienced burnout many times in my life as an overachiever who wants to do all of the things, has immigrant parents who, often kind of beat into my head that you have to work hard, put your head down, do the best you can, and that's what success looks like. So, for me, there are many occasions where I've experienced burnout, but when you ask this question and I think about like that one time where it's like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
It was in 2023. I was working in a role at a company that was once my dream company. And I was working on this project that was really, it was very challenging for me at the time. There were a lot of things that kind of went wrong with it. And the main difference between this instance of a challenging project that was leading to burnout compared to previous instances was I happened to be in Portugal with my partner at the time. We were working abroad for a month, and typically it's just me, click clacking away on my keyboard at home by myself, and maybe into all hours of the night and not taking care of myself. But there was really no one to hold me accountable because it was just me. But
Mhm.
at this point, my partner was in the same space as me, and he got a front row seat to seeing how I was dealing with it. And
Mhm.
to be frank, I wasn't dealing with it. I was not sleeping properly. I was forgetting meals. There was a point where I didn't go outside for like 4 days, and we were in Portugal.
Wow.
It was supposed to be this, you work during the day, you've explored during the evenings and weekends, but I was just so burnt out and obsessed with my work that I wasn't able to explore. And that's when he really sat me down and said, I'm concerned. This is not
Wow.
okay. And you need to do something about this. And at first, I was a bit defensive because I didn't want to believe it. But I quickly realized, oh, you know what? I actually haven't felt the sun on my skin in a few days. There might be a problem here.
Wow. Woo, it's always other people that are able to spot it, right? I think that when you're in that overworking kind of space, which is what it sounds like, you're just trying to survive. You're literally just trying to get to the next email, get to the next campaign, get to, in my case, coaching, get to the next call, get to the next client. Like it's just a lot. But yeah, it sounds like you, and thank God that you had somebody that could speak into you and say, listen, this is not okay. This is not
Yeah.
okay. Um, let's dive into a little bit more about what you did next. So, we're in Portugal, we're realizing, this is not it. What was the next step?
So the next step was after me admitting that this is a problem was seeking therapy. It was getting a professional to help me understand not only why am I acting this way now,
Hmm.
but what has led me to this point to believe that I need to overwork to prove my worth or to prove my value. And it was a lot of really difficult conversations and some hard truths that I needed to face. But it really helped me kind of see from an outsider's perspective and a professional's perspective why I was doing the things that I was doing that was leading me down this very dangerous path of neglecting myself, my health, my mental health, my family, my relationships. It was a real wake up call for me. So after, seeking a therapist and speaking with them for a bit, my next step was to decide to take a short term disability or a stress leave for 8 weeks to take a step back from work and start really focusing on my health and just my next steps.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as comfortable as you are sharing, but what were some of those things? Because I know that I also had an experience with overworking. And to your point, I had burnt out of every single job I had had up until that point, right? This was just the most profound one. So I remember thinking that, like, this is not going to change if I don't deal with like the fundamental things around how I see work. And I see it a lot with Black women. We carry the entire world on our shoulders. But I'm curious to find out, like, what were some of those things that you discovered around, like, I guess your relationship with work?
For sure. Well, I would say the signs for me to realize that I was not okay is every time my phone would vibrate, I would have a panic attack
Wow.
because I was thinking, what is happening? What have I missed? What is someone, messaging me to check up on? Like my phone vibrating or my watch vibrating was like very triggering for me.
Mm.
Also, I was obsessing over my to-do list. I was neglecting my personal relationships, my health, etc. Those were kind of the signs that I like to share with people because in general, like I feel the conversation we're having right now, especially on LinkedIn, is very brave.
Yeah. Listen, every time we have it, it's yeah.
It's a brave conversation, but what I think is a lot of people are experiencing what I've just shared and experiencing what you've just shared. People just don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about it. There's a lot of stigma attached to the symptoms of burnout, knowing what your next steps are, admitting that you need to speak to a therapist, etc. And yeah, I'm grateful for you to creating this space. And I am proud of myself for also being so open with these types of discussions because I genuinely feel like these types of conversations save lives.
100%. And to your point, when I started sharing about navigating burnout, I think I had like 8 different women reach out to me. And these were women I looked up to. I was completely shocked, right? Because I was like, you as well? Like you're a powerhouse. Like, because this the narrative, right? The narrative when you're experiencing this and how to take a step back is I failed or I was not good enough or strong enough to get through this or I couldn't I couldn't hack it. I couldn't cut it. So I had to take a step back. Meanwhile, it's so much braver to take a step back than to continue.
Absolutely.
Like, like so much braver. Okay, so tell us what happened. So you recognize the signs, you decided, you know what, I need to take a step back. How did you obviously you went to the therapist, you did the deep work, and then just practically with your work, like how did you navigate your exit, or did you navigate your exit?
I did not have to navigate my exit the way that most people probably would have, because the week that I returned back to work from my 8 week short term disability, stress leave, etc., I was laid off from my role. And I genuinely, like, the decision was made for me, but I'm very grateful that that happened, because whether I liked it or not, I was not going to go back to that place physically, that place, and just like literally also just that place of trying to perform
Mm,
in a space that was not for me, that was not a space where I was able to thrive in. So I'm grateful that that happened, because it forced me to like do something different. And for me, what I decided to do as that different thing was pursue entrepreneurship. I had already been working in corporate for 10 plus years, and I felt like this was a good time for me to really bet on myself and see what I can do to design my life in a way that works for me, and not necessarily, working towards a larger company's goals and strategies, but really allowing me to pour into myself and into my own creativity and doing things that I genuinely enjoy.
and that's the thing about burnout. It really like causes you to take a look at your life. And you're almost at a crossroads. You're almost at a like, am I going to go back or am I going to do something different? Right. I remember I also went on medical leave, right? And it was 3 months. The first month, my hand stopped shaking. I stopped having panic attacks. The left side of my body that was numb for the better part of 6 months started getting feeling. Like it was crazy how a month into taking rest was able to just rewire my body. And I knew immediately I cannot go back.
Yeah.
And it was a tough decision. Like to say, you know what, I'm not gonna go back because I was like, what am I gonna do? Like this is intense, which is why, like again, and we're gonna get into what you do and like the work that you're trying to do. I think it's so important to know that it's not the end of the world because guess what? I coached women that were burnt out who went on medical leave and then went back to the same exact place that burned them out. Like because they just don't know another way out, right? And it's tough. It's tough. It's not just a physical thing. It's a mental thing. It's the way that you see yourself. It's the way that you see the work. And I love what you said about I decided to pursue entrepreneurship because I needed to create a system that worked for me. And I think that was ultimately the difference is that a lot of these systems of work don't work for everybody. And you need to identify as someone that's like navigating something, you need to identify if it's just this company, if it's just this role, like were you promoted faster than you wanted to, or is it the fact that this structure just does not align with your life?
Absolutely. I feel like there's so many different ways that people thrive and people work. For example, I'm not a morning person, and that doesn't make me a lazy person, which I often feel like society feels makes you feel like if you're not a 5 a.m. club girl, you're not successful. I don't do well in the mornings. I tend to work better in the evenings and at night. And, building systems that allow me to do that work, whether it's, just being my own entrepreneur, whether it is collaborating with people in different time zones that allow me to do that, and maybe switching my physical location so that's doable. There's so many different ways that we can design systems that work for us. But to your point, a lot of us are stuck in this constant cycle of, well, this is all I know, so I'm just going to continue to do the thing. But the reality is, nothing changes if nothing changes. You really need to change the things to be able to pursue that life that is more meaningful for you.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. I say that all the time. And you just said, I don't know how, because when you said it, it hit me even more. But you're so right. And I think that like that's why our voice is so important in this space, to show people that there's other options. And you could still be like successful, and you could still be that boss babe if you want to be. If you want to like be a stay-at-home girlfriend, you could also do that.
Yes.
Right? There's so many different options. So tell us what you do now. Like, what is the company? What do you do now? What is it about?
For sure. So back when I was working full time, even though I was very much doing the most and very much burnt out, I still had my creative outlet, which was creating content on social media, very specifically personal finance and travel content. Those are two topics that have always been near and dear to my heart. Some people think they're a bit random and unrelated, but in my mind, it takes money to travel. So learning how to make and manage money so you can do more of the things you love, like travel, are very closely connected. During that time where I was working full time, I could commit to one post a week. That's all I could do for social media. One post a week, that's all I had the energy to do. But it was enough to put me out there and get people familiar with me and my content, and really kind of help me carve this space out for myself in this personal finance and travel niche.
Mm-hmm.
So since I was laid off from my role, I decided to just take that a bit more seriously and, put more effort into it now that I had more time and energy to do so. So one part of my business is personal finance and travel content creation. I partner with different financial institutions, banks, etc., also travel companies, to promote their products and services, and also just to educate my audience on, things that you can do to be more efficient with your travels, the way that you can save money on travel, etc., and just like make longer trips happen.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I like slow travel, and I think that goes to I like slow travel as a result of being burnt out,
Slow
because you
travel.
know slow travel just means you are not taking a 1 week vacation and seeing four different cities in that 1 week.
Oh gosh, like you need a vacation from your vacation situation.
Exactly. So for me, on average, when I'm traveling, I'm ideally spending a minimum of 1 month per country to allow my nervous system to really, dysregulate and take in these sights and sounds at my pace, at a pace that feels comfortable to me. And that's not to say that I'm taking 1 month vacations. I'm not typically working in those countries, but it just means that I'm not country hopping every other day, because that doesn't feel good to my nervous system.
Wow. So I see what you mean, because I was like, my first question was, well, how can you afford to stay for a month if, but that's the finance side of things.
Exactly. That's the finance side of things. And that is why I've built this business, because my business allows me to actually stay in said country for 30 days. And that just goes to our earlier conversation about designing a life that works for your systems. So, one half of my business is content creation. And the other half of my business is a business called Liberty Leave that I founded in 2019 when I took my first sabbatical from my job. I took 6 months off to travel through Southeast Asia completely solo. I went to Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia, and it completely changed my life in the best way possible. And as I started to share that story with other women, everyone's like, I want to do that. I didn't even know that was possible. So I've dedicated this part of my business to teaching women how to make it possible, how to make it happen, and without going broke. So we go through different things like mindset, finances, etc.
Okay. So, I mean, in 2019, I know this was pre-pandemic, and I remember reading your article, like in 2023, much later, because I think you wrote a lot about that leave. But were you working remotely? Like, how could you take 6 months off? I'm just trying to do a bit of math. Like,
For sure. So that job, I was actually working at that company for a total of over 12 years.
Okay.
And because I had that tenure and because I was really good at my job, I was able to actually negotiate a 6 month sabbatical from my job. So I was not actually working remotely. I had negotiated just time off from that. So I left and then I came back to a role at that company.
Okay, you need to give us the tea because how do you negotiate 6 months off? I feel like people are fighting for like PTO of like 4 or 5 days. How do what do you even offer? Yeah, I'm curious about that whole process.
For sure, it's possible. And I think a lot of people don't look into their corporate manuals, especially with benefits, and to see what sabbatical options are available to them. Because while it may not be widely spoken about or popular, a lot of companies will let you do this if you sit them down, talk them through the benefits of it, not necessarily just for you. So don't focus on you saying that you're burnt out, but also focus on the value that it can bring to your company. You know, you're coming back with a fresher perspective. You're coming back with new ideas, you know, newfound passion, etc. It's really important about framing it. It's really important to frame it in a way that is mutually beneficial. It is possible for sure.
Wow. Okay. So I hope people are taking notes because what you said actually reminded me of one of the benefits that we used to have at my old company. So I worked at a university and I knew that like professors had like faculty, they had the opportunity to take like a sabbatical where they wouldn't work for I think it was like a year to a year and a half. But I didn't realize that like as staff we had that option. But now that I'm thinking about it probably wasn't like the full year, but it was something. So if anyone's thinking about taking a break, like just look at what your benefits offer, is what you're saying.
Yeah, look at what your benefits offer. Very popular in academia, to your point, in some government roles. Also, a lot of tech companies have a policy where maybe you work for 4 or 5 years and they give you a month off. And even if it's not, you know, written out in the benefits manual, I still suggest just sitting down, talking with leadership. Of course, you know, come prepared with all of the values that you bring to the company. Make sure you're really good at your job and irreplaceable. That is, you know, a very solid point as well.
Yeah.
But it is possible. There are many ways to go about this.
Amazing. So both of us are entrepreneurs, right? One of the things that we hear all the time, one of the things that we see all the time about entrepreneurship is this like uncertainty, right? We went from like the full time corporate girlies, getting our paycheck, earning our money, to like now full time entrepreneurship, getting our own bag. I'm curious to find how did you overcome? First of all, did you have any fear around like uncertainty with finances? If so, how did you overcome some of those fears around stability? Really?
Yes, I did have fear about that. I do have fear about that.
Fair
And I
enough.
want to be explicitly clear to people watching this because I sometimes feel like entrepreneurship is painted in this light where it's like, it's butterflies and rainbows. You've escaped corporate. Congratulations. Life is beautiful. That is not the reality. It is a hustle. And I want to be explicitly clear to everyone watching this that entrepreneurship is a hustle
Mm,
and it takes a lot. It is a mirror. It shines the mirror on you, all of your insecurities, all of your doubts about yourself, all of the places where you don't believe in yourself. Like it is a mirror and it is not easy. And I say this as someone who has been a full-time entrepreneur for just over 2 years now. It is a constant uphill battle that I feel privileged that I'm able to continue on this road. But
yeah.
at the same time, I will share with people that are there moments where I am discouraged and I'm on LinkedIn looking at career postings, job boards? Yes, I am.
Listen, listen. We know. And ultimately, it comes down to I'm still building this thing. If and when I'm like, you know what, I want to get more funds to build this thing, or I want to take a break in this season of my life, or I'm going to work for 6 months, do a contract role. Again, the options are endless. I think that what you just said is so important because I don't know why people are so extreme. It's like corporate or entrepreneur. It's like you can do both. You can do either. You can go in and out. Like it just life is so long and so like winding and so uncertain. So why box yourself by these arbitrary things, right?
A
So
1000% agree.
so how do you overcome that fear?
I don't. It's very much feel the fear and do it anyway. That is one of my philosophies of this life. I am scared
Okay.
every day. Like, sure,
Wow.
there are times where I feel great. I feel very optimistic. I feel very hopeful about entrepreneurship. But there are a lot of days where I don't. And it does feel like a hustle. And it does feel like, okay, maybe I need to pivot. Do I, give into like, sometimes I feel like I'm giving into sunk cost fallacy, which is like, okay, well, I've already put so much into this thing, so much time, energy, resources. So, like, do I stay? Do I go? It's feel the fear and do it anyway. And when there is a point where I feel the fear and I don't feel like doing it, to your point, there are options. You can take on a contract, you can get a job if you need to. Entrepreneurs having to go back to corporate temporarily or full time, or just deciding that entrepreneurship is no longer for them, that's not a failure.
No.
We're just pivoting. Life is very fluid and it's okay to go with the flow.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Um, and work with a coach. Like work with like you don't have to do it alone. I think that there's also that mentality, right? There's this like lonely only solopreneur. I'm just trugging through. No, you have to get community. The same way that you had coworkers when you were working at a large corporation is the same way that you can find other entrepreneurs. The same way that you can attend events and build your network and actually connect with each other on a human to human level. Like I remember, like you said, the uncertainty around income. And then like talking to another entrepreneur, and they're like, okay, well, I mean, you could create like a subscription based thing, or you can do like a payment plan thing where you have a consistent amount coming in. And that just took away the like, ooh, like roller coaster of income. And that changed my business just by having that one conversation. Or I remember having this conversation. I remember I was launching this program and we're like 3 days before the program's about to launch. I have zero signups. And I'm just like, what the heck? This is a massive program. I've spent the last 9 months building it. And again, I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have tried to sell it before I built it. That was the whole thing. But whatever. I spent 9 months building this thing, right? And I had zero signups. And I started to be like, oh my goodness, all this self-doubt. Did I waste all this time? Did I waste all this money? And then I had like an entrepreneurship community of women. And I just put it in the group and I was like, guys, I just need prayer. I need help. Like, just, I feel overwhelmed. Like, why are there no signs? And they're like, oh, yeah, nobody signs up on time. And I was like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, nobody signs up on time. Everyone's going to sign up at the last minute. I was like, what? Is that a thing? They're like, yeah, it's a thing. So, like, you're fine. 3 days before and there's nobody there, you're fine. And lo and behold, I had 5 signups and it was like a high ticket program on the last day. And this whole time I'm going into this like self-doubt, like did I hear wrong? Was I doing the wrong thing? That's why having community is so important, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like this conversation right now is the perfect example of that because I'm launching my first program next week. And I needed to hear that, maybe if things don't happen right away, they might happen in the final, few hours. So good to
100%.
know.
Yes, 100%. Like again, this entrepreneurship thing, it takes a village, right? Okay. So now that you've come out of burnout, well, I'm assuming you've come out of burnout. We're always in some level of like balance. What are some of those things that you have done to protect your energy so that you don't slide back into burnout, but like just entrepreneurship version of burnout?
Yeah. To the first part, actually, of your question slash comment that I think it's important to touch on is it took me a while to come out of burnout, like over a year to come out of burnout. And I think that's important to mention because I find a lot of people, especially the women that I work with, feel if I take a 3-month break, like of course I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be healed after this. But I don't think people realize the depths that burnout has, the effects that it has on one's being.
Yeah.
it can take months, it can take years and more for people to really start feeling like themselves again, for people's nervous systems to become regulated again, and for people to start believing in themselves and trusting themselves again. So I just want to put that out there for anyone watching. This is not like an overnight fix. You don't take a few months off of work and go to the spa and do a few therapy visits and that's it. We're good. Like there's a lot of deep, deep work that goes into healing from burnout. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, 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 yes.
Um, and to answer your question about what do I do to ensure that I don't slip back into burnout, I am very mindful of the amount of things that I take on at once. I know my limits. I know that I no longer work in corporate and in a way where, things are assigned to me and I don't really have a choice of, what I take on and what I don't. I'm very mindful that I can't balance too many things at once. I'm very mindful that I cannot, create I'm never going to be the one who's posting on Instagram 3 times a day. I will perish if that was ever expected of me.
Even
And
as a content creator, you're like, no, not doing it.
absolutely. And also, I seek help, especially now. Like, I am currently experiencing burnout with content creation. And that's why I've hired help for some, like, helping me create some carousels, for example, because I just don't have the capacity to do that right now. And I know that it's important to be visible, especially as I'm entering a new season in my business. But I know that I can't do all of the things by myself. Another phrase that I really live by is you can do anything, but not everything. And
Mm,
that really resonates with me because there was a point in my life where I thought I was the powerhouse who could do everything. And to be honest, I probably could do everything until I couldn't.
what cost? Yeah. Hmm.
At what cost? So for me, it's seeking out help. It's being realistic with my timelines and my bandwidth. It is allowing myself to have slow mornings as someone who does not operate well, within the early the early morning shift, and also just allowing myself to explore and not be tied to one physical space for a long period of time. Like for example, I don't like to stay in Canada for too long, especially in the winters. I get seasonal depression. I know that's not good for my mental health, which is therefore not good for my business. So I plan to go to Spain and spend a couple months there, maybe hop around Asia for a bit, because my physical location is also very important to me and my nervous system.
A lot of the things that you are saying, they sound revolutionary to some of us. Like, honestly, saying to yourself, you know what? I don't want to be in Canada when it's cold. That is revolutionary. A lot of people don't have that choice, right? Or they think they don't have that choice, right? But and this is again why we connected, because that's me and that's my story, right? Like, I usually go home back to Nigeria in the winter because of that reason, right? I, you know, I wasn't born and raised here. I was raised in Nigeria, which is nice and sunny and like warm. And, you know, I struggled a lot with the winter. I've been here 17 years, never gotten used to it. I would like struggle a lot during the winter and I used to feel bad about it. And then when I became an entrepreneur, I was like, I don't have to be here during the winter. Like, just even that thought, revolutionary. But to your
It
point,
is.
you have to get your money up, you have to plan it, you have to be strategic about it. Like, the time it takes to recover and then put up systems, it's work, right? And ultimately you decide if you want to do that work. I think a lot of people talk about like soft life and setting up a lifestyle that works for you, but they don't realize like how hard it is to go against the grain, right, of what everybody else is doing, right? Do you have anybody in your family that is like doing sabbaticals, living different places, working for, like, do you have anybody? Do you have a blueprint? I don't have a blueprint, but like that takes work.
It does. It takes a lot of work and bravery because like you said, it goes against the grain. It's not normal. People don't understand it. And people are not necessarily supportive because it's weird. Why are you doing that? Like, why don't you just sit down in, the place where your family is, your friends are, you have a good job, just be normal. Like, I think that it is abnormal to go against the grain. And I want to give us our flowers for being brave enough to build a life that works for us. And I also want to put out the caveat and acknowledge that there is a lot of privilege, I think, that goes into being able to do something like this. And I feel like some of that privilege, of course, is having access to wealth because it's not cheap to do, a bi-coastal lifestyle. Um, I also acknowledge that like I don't have children and I am not a caretaker, so I'm able to kind of move around more freely. So while yes, there's a lot of like bravery into it, there is some aspects of privilege too that I think is important to be acknowledged because some people hear these conversations and they're like, oh well, of course they can do that because blah blah blah. A lot of it is true. A lot of it is privilege as well.
100%, 100%. And some of us have that privilege, but are too scared to use that privilege or access that privilege, right? I'm not talking about the person that's literally trying their best, right? I'm talking about the person that is psychologically holding themselves back. I'm talking about the person that like has family that can support. They just need to ask. I'm talking about the person that has access to multiple countries, right? So things that we're talking about in terms of like going and moving somewhere else, that requires you having a passport that allows you to do that. Like all of these things is if you have access to those things, but you're just scared and you're holding yourself back, let us be some examples. I know that I didn't see a lot of examples of this, right? And I also don't want to point out the other side of it, which is like it's tough to when people ask me where do you live, I'm like, listen, this is such a
That's a tough question. Yeah.
This is such a even myself, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, are you gonna settle down? Are you going to stop doing this back and forth? Like, what are you doing? But I also know that like whatever it is that I was doing before when I was following all the rules nearly took me out. Like, I know that, right?
I feel that one in my soul. What I was doing to follow all the rules nearly took me out. I feel that in my soul.
It nearly took me out. I remember that day right before I went on medical leave. I had a 4-hour panic attack. It was wild. And all I kept saying was, this is not the life I want. Like on repeat for like 4 hours. I did not know what it could look like, but I know that this is not what I want. And it took like I hired everybody under the sun. I had a career coach, a therapist, a financial advisor, a fitness coach, a nutritionist. I had like 7 different people I was paying. It was a lot of money. That's another thing. If people are like, oh, it's too expensive, I'm like, listen, if you're having to take care of your health because you're burnt out, whatever that paycheck is giving you, you're going to have to spend it on your health. It's costing you something. Like if you just think, oh, you know what, I'm going to keep grinding it at this place because my paycheck, you're going to end up spending a large chunk of your paycheck trying to recover physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's going to be years of finding yourself again. Right? I'm not saying that to scare anybody, but if I'm talking to you, you know that I'm talking to you when I'm saying this is important. You have to prioritize this stuff because this is your health. This is your health. This is your ability to continue. I always tell people, clients that I work with, when we're all in uni or in college or whatever, and you're working on an assignment, it's 11 p.m. or it's 12 p.m. and you've been going all day. Like you have been going all day and you're trying to figure something out and it's just not coming together. It just looks like gibberish. It's not coming together. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, of course, 1 + 1 = 2. And your brain needs to rest. Like it is literally not productive to keep going when you're exhausted.
Yep, I could not agree more. Studies actually show that women who don't speak up at work, and especially Black women, like these cause autoimmune diseases, symptoms, illnesses, etc. The cost of staying in a place that is not meant for you is your health.
And it's not just your current health, it's your future health.
Yeah.
Right? Acute stress is life. Everybody has acute stress. You need to pay the babysitter. You need to go do this thing. That's fine. Chronic stress, that is not okay. Anyways, we're preaching to the choir here, but we've done it. We've been able to kind of move through. So what advice would you give someone who feels stuck in burnout, but doesn't know where to begin? Because obviously one of the symptoms of burnout is like decision fatigue, right? So what kind of advice would you give them as almost like a step-by-step on how to start the process of coming out of it?
For sure. I would say the first step is be honest with yourself. You know, you, and this is easier said than done. This is something that struggled with in the past, as I shared earlier. You really have to be honest with yourself about where you're at and how like, how does your nervous system feel? When you think about work, do you have a slight panic attack? Are you stressed out? Are you not looking forward to it? Do you have Sunday scaries? If the answer to any of that is yes, then that's probably a sign that something is not right and something needs to change. And from there, I think that it's really important to seek professional support through therapy. I think a lot of people, especially, yeah, a lot of people in general just don't believe in therapy. A lot of people think that therapy is a waste of money, it's a waste of time, it's for weak people. It is like you don't need therapy if you go to church or if you're religious. And this is not the case. Everyone should be in therapy. Everyone needs support, but more specifically on this level of burnout, it's really important to talk to someone one to one about your specific situation, and specifically someone who's willing to really get into the nitty gritty of why are you acting the way that you're acting that has gotten you to this point. Why do you believe that you need to go above and beyond to a point of burnout to feel valuable, to feel successful, and to feel worthy? And that type of work is really only accessible through a therapist. I mean, there are like DIY ways that you can do it. I'm sure you could, read journals, read psychology, whatever. There's different ways of doing it, but therapy is kind of your fast track to making that happen. So I feel like therapy is really important. And then the third step is if you do need to take a step back, being honest with yourself that you do, and pursue what Ibiemi and I have. We've talked about our I call it a short-term disability, whether it's a leave of absence, whatever it is, like take a step back so you can actually focus on yourself, because it's very difficult to focus on yourself when you're also trying to do all the things and deliver at work. These two things are very difficult to coexist at the same time. And if you truly believe that you're at a point where, this is important, you got to force yourself to take that step back.
That's exactly the same advice that I would give, like to a T, right? When you take that step back, like rest, please, just rest. Like it'll feel really tough. Like I remember writing on my blog, I wrote a blog post called "Rest is a four-letter word" because it just was like I was not used to it. I actually hated it, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to rest, which sounds like so ridiculous, but I genuinely did not know how to not feel like I had to be productive all the time, right? So rest, as hard as it can be, like fight for it, and then start planning your exit if you can, right? Um, yeah,
An
yeah,
exit can look, there's not one way that an exit has to look, right? Like an exit can be what we've discussed right now, which is, your short-term disability, your medical leave. It can also look like quitting your job if that's necessary. And I'm very mindful that this is a very difficult job
tough.
market.
Yeah, it's tough.
I feel like that's important to acknowledge, but also similar to what we said earlier, the cost of this is your health. And if you are, slowly uh, diminishing because of this, then that might, need to be a priority.
And that looks like a lot of different things. Like when I decided that I was going to quit my job, I knew the reality of my bills, right? I reached out to my financial advisor and he was like, listen, you have been really good with saving. That's another thing. Like if this is something that you're thinking about down the line, like start putting stuff away. But anyways, I was really good with saving and like investing and like all these different things. And he was like, "You're okay for a year if you don't do any other thing." And I looked at that and I was like, "Okay, cool. I will be okay financially for a full year if I don't do anything. But do I really want to drain all of the savings and investments I've had over the last 10 years of my career because I'm going through this season?" And ultimately, the answer was no. So I got on a flight and moved back home. I just did it. I was like, if I'm going to be in Toronto, I'm not going to be able to afford the rent, right? I could if I, like I said, on my savings and my investments, but I didn't want to drain that entire thing because I was still trying to do this hyper independence thing. To me, it was okay, well, I have to move back home to my parents' house. So grateful that I have a parents' house that I can move back into. And, initially I was feeling like maybe it was like a failure almost. But the minute I got home, they just took care of me. Like the way nobody shamed me about this, like not a single person. It was just me to myself, not a single person, because they had seen how much I was overworking. I was the only one that couldn't see it. And when I went back home, I got taken care of. Like I got basically nursed back to health. Like they were so worried about me, but that was what the sacrifice looked like, right? So it's not going to be a quit your job and then struggle. It's like, okay, let's create a plan that is not going to be ideal, because ideally you want to be living by yourself, having your apartment, having a great job, having a great partner. But it's what you need right now because you have neglected your life and you need to not start again, but you need to blow up your life is the way I like to call it, but in a manageable professional way. Like you don't want to ruin your life, but you want to do something that is going to be different. I know for me, that was like moving back home. I know you, Danica, you went to Europe, and like obviously cost of living is a little bit different. So you were able to save a bit more. Like you're gonna have to take a step back, right?
Yeah.
Which brings me to my
Yeah.
question. Like how has your definition of success evolved since your pivot?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think getting into corporate early in my career, my definition of success was like quickly climbing the corporate ladder. I wanted to be like director, VP of marketing. Like that's what success looked like. Or maybe own my own marketing agency one day if I wanted to go the entrepreneurship route. It meant, living downtown Toronto and like owning my space. It looked like me, being present at all the things, speaking on all the panels, and just doing as much as I could to put myself out there. I think what's changed for me now is a few things.
Sorry to
One,
interrupt you, but because I know your story, you did all those things.
I did.
You did
I was
all those.
able, I did. And I stopped because I realized I don't want this anymore. This is not
Like
what I
you
thought it would be
literally
like.
had like the picture perfect, like whatever, all the things that you just described, you got to all of those heights.
I did. And I realized quickly that the grass is greener on everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side. And a lot of this looks like butterflies and rainbows, but sometimes it's like smoke and mirrors. Sometimes it's actually not what it is cracked up to be. And after experiencing a lot of those things, I had to be honest with myself. And that's when I kind of made that pivot and realized I actually don't want these things. Like these are not important to me. Living downtown Toronto is no longer at this time as important to me because cost of living is crazy. It's a super small space. I'm not able to be as mobile as I'd like to and live a bi-coastal lifestyle. So I sold my place. I realized I do not want to, be a people leader. I don't want to, necessarily like be responsible for other like employees under me right now because there's a lot of challenges that come with that. And as like a very empathetic person and also someone who just loves to do my own thing, maybe individual contributor work is actually more my style, and therefore, entrepreneurship and being a content creator and owning my program, that works out better for me. Uh, Also, for me in general, I would say slow mornings are success. Slow mornings are an example of wealth to me in this stage of my life because I'm no longer ejecting myself out of my bed at a time that I don't want to. That's an example of success. Being able to, yesterday, I spent the day at the spa with my friends because we were having bad days and, we decided to take some time away. Like that's to me success, like time convenience, time flexibility, location independence. All of these things, now that I'm older and wiser, are ways that I view success now and ways that I prevent myself from getting back into a place that I don't want to be, which is burnout.
Oh, so brave of you. Honestly, that is so amazing. Evolving success to be the things that you actually want, not the things that the world says that we internalize. Let's be honest. Like how how did all of us have the same dream?
Yeah.
Like legit.
Success is like freedom and flexibility. And a lot of like what you said, the dream that we've been sold, whose dream is it? And a lot of the shame that people sometimes try to make us feel for not living up to that dream or not, living those traditionally successful lives, whose shame is that? Because I don't feel ashamed. I'm actually very proud of myself for pursuing this life that works really well for me. So,
Yes to all of the things that you just said. Like, and if I'm honest, I think I've always been this way, but I don't think that I had the bravery.
mhm.
I just remember thinking, like, I don't really want to buy a house in the suburbs. I don't really want to, like, I just, all these like thoughts that I just never really voiced out. I'm like, I don't really feel like being a VP. Like, I don't really, like, and I thought that that meant that I wasn't ambitious, and that's just not true. I'm
Mhm.
such an ambitious person, and I'm such a driven person, a go-getter. But I also realized that like I don't want this life. And there's nothing wrong with it if that's what you want, right? And I think the struggle was in the misalignment. And that's another thing that I always like to say. So sometimes burnout is overworking, sometimes burnout is being underpaid, sometimes burnout is not having the good, ability to control your own time. And sometimes burnout is because you're misaligned consistently, right? Cognitive dissonance. When you're consistently showing up to something that is going against who you are, it takes a toll, right? So sometimes you just need to be aligned because to your point, it's not like entrepreneurship is a cakewalk. Excuse me. It's just a different kind of hard. But it's aligned to who I've been this person. I've been this person that wanted to build. I've been this person that wanted to help people with their career. When I was when I was a student, I'm thinking about this now. When I was a student, I volunteered at the career center helping people with their resume. I've always
Mhm.
been this person that just wanted to help, but on my own terms, do my own thing. Like, but I was, like I said, scared to do all these things, right? Um, so guys, make sure you're aligned. Make sure you are aligned. Before we let you go, I want us to, obviously both of us are in the entrepreneurial space, meaning we're always selling something. So I want to give you a chance to, plug your program, and then I'll plug my program after. But tell us a little bit more about what's upcoming for you at Liberty Lead.
Yeah, for sure. So, for context, for anyone who's kind of confused about the name Liberty Leave, when I took that sabbatical that I mentioned earlier, where I took 6 months off of my job to travel through Southeast Asia, I decided, like, no, it's not a stress leave. It's definitely not a maternity leave. It's a liberty leave. I'm taking this time away for me to explore myself and really to pursue liberation. And that's where the name Liberty Leave came from. And now that I've had a lot of time and space to talk to a lot of women and coach them individually through their own processes of navigating taking time off from work, whether it's to travel, to just, caretake, dabble into new hobbies, spend some time with themselves, I am launching a course and community that helps women do all these things. And there are 6 different modules. We cover everything from, mindset and, having to acknowledge the fact that you are burnt out, which a lot of people struggle with. We talk about the money portion of it, of course, because money is the biggest barrier to women being able to take career breaks. We talk about having difficult conversations with family and friends who may not understand or support your decision. We walk you through the break, etc. It is a whole all-encompassing program that gives you the tools that you need to be able to make this happen. We start on October 21st, and you're able to start purchasing your admission as of next week. So I would love to have you if you are a burnt out woman who needs to figure out how to take a career break without going broke.
Amen to that, without going broke. That's amazing. I think what you have built is so important and so many people need it. And like, truthfully, like, you're such a kind person. Like, every single time I interact with you, like, you're so encouraging in the way that you show up. And you say the hard things, but you say like the nicest like energy. I don't know how to describe it, but like, yeah, I think that anybody that really is, like I said, on that journey, like Danica said, like, definitely reach out and, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at Danica S. Nelson on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on all of the platforms. You'll see me there. And
Amazing.
libertyleave.com is the website where you can subscribe to the program or join the program if you'd like.
Amazing. We'll put it in the comments of this document. Can you tell that I've been coaching all day? We'll put it in the comments of this live. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like a host. Thank you for coming on the show. It was great to have you. I'm also running a program this fall, also in October. But my focus is going to be helping people pivot careers, right? So obviously we've been having career pivot conversations. I've run this cohort 3 times now. It's been amazing. We've had men and women come into the program with like, I know that I'm not aligned. I know that I don't like my job. I know that I don't like my business, but I don't know what to do with it. And we go through the process of like getting them ready to pivot into a new job. So people in the program have gone on to, get leadership positions, have gone on to start doing mentorship as an added on, have quit their job and started their own businesses, have like, again, a lot of people have made those transitions. It's an accelerated program, so it's 6 weeks. Starts October 27th, and each week we go through just where to start, which is like the mapping, the reflection work, very similar to the mindset work, because we both know that you cannot, what was the quote from that conference? You cannot outperform your own self-image. You cannot. If you don't believe that you can, you won't, right? But if you believe that you can, then you can. So that first week is all about mapping and mindset, and then we go right into getting your documentation to go out to public, so your resume, your LinkedIn, getting you prepared for interviews, getting you connected with my network and people that I know, and then getting you applying for those jobs or starting that business, right? So again, high ticket program, fast paced program, but you will make that shift, right? If you have any questions, you can go to my website, Fitted Consulting, so fitdconsulting.com. The details are on there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, which is where we're filming out of. At my name, Bianca Logan, and then obviously FITD Consulting. But this was great. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for showing up. I think you have set a lot of people free, and I think we've given a lot of practical advice for people that are feeling back into a corner. Because this life is, as Nigerians would say, this life is one, meaning you have to live it the way that you want to live it. And if you don't see the blueprint, make the blueprint, right? And seek help ultimately. Any last words? Any last things you want to share?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is you're not too old and it's not too late, and you can reinvent yourself as many times as you need to. I think it's important for this conversation. If you are feeling like your life is no longer aligned or it's no longer fitting, switch it up.
Love that. I love that. Well, with that, I'll end the stream. Thank you all for coming, and we'll put all the links in the comments. Have a good day.